The vast emptiness of space stretched before the Drelician warship Sentinel of Dawn as it patrolled the outer reaches of Imperial territory. Captain Verruxin stood on the command deck, her 4 eyes scanning the tactical displays with practiced efficiency. Her scaled skin shimmered under the blue light of the bridge as she maintained her characteristically rigid posture. "Captain, we have detected unknown vessels at coordinates 27 to 8542, reported her first officer. They appear to be of undocumented design. Verruxin flicked her secondary eyelids in what would translate to mild interest. "Show me." The main view screen shifted to display 3 small spacecraft moving in formation. By Drelician standards, they were unimpressive, blocky, utilitarian, and lacking the sleek biomechanical aesthetics of Imperial vessels. "Scan them," she ordered. Within moments, data began flowing across her personal display. Verruxin's mandibles clicked in what her crew recognized as dismissal. Primitive propulsion systems, minimal weapons capacity, inefficient power distribution, she noted. Hardly worth our attention. Her tactical officer leaned forward. "Their communication methods are basic, but decipherable. They identify as humans from a planet called Earth. Another developing species," Verruxin said with the equivalent of a sigh. "Still, protocol requires we perform a standard inspection before moving on. Hail them." Aboard the U.S. Horizon, Commander Frank Carter was reviewing maintenance logs when the alert sounded. "Sir," called Communications Specialist Diane Foster, "we're receiving a transmission from the alien vessel. It's attempting to establish contact using multiple frequencies." The bridge crew froze momentarily. Humanity had theorized about first contact for centuries, but facing it now brought a silent tension to the room. Carter nodded calmly. "Put it on screen." The image that appeared showed a being unlike anything from Earth, tall, with chitinous features, multiple eyes, and an exoskeleton that seemed to blend with what must be a uniform. The universal translator worked through several iterations before producing comprehensible words. "This is Captain Verruxin of the Drelician Imperial Fleet. Your vessels have been detected in space claimed by the Empire. Identify yourselves and prepare for inspection." Carter straightened his uniform and stood. "This is Commander Frank Carter of the United Earth Ship Horizon. We are on a peaceful exploration mission, and were unaware this region was claimed territory. We welcome your inspection and the opportunity for diplomatic exchange." On the Drelician ship, Verruxin noticed something curious. The human showed no fear, only calm acceptance and even enthusiasm. Most developing species reacted with terror or aggression when confronted by Drelician ships. "Prepare a boarding party," she instructed her security chief. "I will lead it personally." "Captain," questioned her first officer, "these vessels hardly warrant your direct attention." "Perhaps," Verruxin replied, "but there is something unusual about their response. Their confidence suggests either foolishness or hidden strength. I prefer to assess which it is myself." As preparations were made, Verruxin studied the human vessels more carefully. They lacked the artistic flourishes of Drelician design. No ceremonial extensions, no status indicators, no heritage markings. Just functional, practical engineering focused on purpose rather than appearance. "How strange," she murmured, "to travel between stars in such modest vessels." Little did she know that stepping aboard would challenge everything the Drelician captain thought she understood about technological advancement and species evaluation. The unimpressive exterior of the human ship concealed surprises that would soon force her to reconsider her entire perspective. The Drelician shuttle docked with the U.S. Horizon with a gentle thud. Captain Verruxin adjusted her atmospheric filter and checked the scanning equipment attached to her forearm guard. Behind her, 3 officers stood ready, each carrying specialized devices to analyze the human vessel. "Remember," she instructed her team, "we represent the Empire. Observe everything, but touch nothing without permission." The airlock cycled open to reveal Security Officer Lisa Dawson standing at attention. She was shorter than Verruxin had expected, with dark hair pulled back tightly and a blue uniform that seemed practical rather than ceremonial. "Welcome aboard the Horizon," Dawson said with a slight bow. "Commander Carter is waiting in the conference room, but I'd be happy to escort you through our decontamination protocol first." Veroxin's upper eyes narrowed while her lower ones focused on Dawson's face. "You have decontamination procedures for alien visitors?" "Of course," Dawson replied matter-of-factly. "We've prepared for first contact scenarios for decades, even without knowing who we might meet." This was unexpected. Veroxin had assumed the humans would be overwhelmed by their arrival. Instead, they seemed oddly prepared. The decontamination chamber was simple but effective. As they passed through, Veroxin noticed multiple redundant systems, backup generators, manual overrides, and alternative pathways for essential functions. "Your ship appears functional," she commented, trying to sound diplomatic. Dawson smiled. "Thank you. We focus on reliability over appearance." The corridors surprised Veroxin. While the exterior of the ship had seemed primitive, the interior displayed thoughtful design. The lighting adjusted automatically as they walked. Hatches were positioned for quick access during emergencies. Everything had a purpose. They arrived at the conference room, where Commander Carter waited with several other officers. The humans stood as the Drillicians entered. A gesture of Verox. Zin's translator interpreted as respectful. "Captain Veroxin, welcome," Carter said. "I hope this room is comfortable for your physiology. We adjusted the temperature and oxygen levels based on our initial scans of your shuttle." Veroxin clicked her mandibles in surprise. "You were able to analyze our environmental needs so quickly." "Our chief engineer, Sam Martinez, developed adaptive environmental systems for our exploration missions," Carter explained, gesturing to a man with weathered skin and bright eyes. "We've encountered numerous uninhabitable planets, so flexibility is essential." Martinez stepped forward. "Would you like to see our engineering section, Captain? You might find our approach interesting." The engineering deck was buzzing with activity. Unlike the automated systems on Drillician vessels, humans worked alongside their machinery, making adjustments and improvements continuously. "You mean your systems are not fixed upon construction?" Veroxin asked as Martinez showed her their propulsion controls. "Fixed?" Martinez laughed warmly. "Absolutely not. We're constantly upgrading, adapting, and improving. This engine design has evolved during our journey." Veroxin's scanning device detected unusual power routing techniques, unlike anything in Drillician technology. The humans used less advanced materials but combined them in innovative ways her people had never considered. "Your power distribution is inefficient by our standards," she noted. "But more adaptable," Martinez countered. "We can reroute power instantly to any system that needs it. If one pathway fails, we have 3 backups." As they continued the tour, Veroxin noticed something else unexpected: plants growing in various sections, artwork on walls, and communal spaces where crew members gathered. "Why waste valuable ship space on non-essential elements?" she asked. Commander Carter smiled. "Because our crews aren't just working components, Captain. They're people who need comfort, community, and reminders of home to function at their best." Veroxin's perception was shifting with each step through the human vessel. What had seemed primitive from the outside was revealing itself to be something quite different, something her experience hadn't prepared her to understand. "I believe," she said slowly, "I may have misjudged your technological approach." The tour continued to the medical bay of the U.S. Horizon, a section Veroxin had initially expected to be primitive like most developing species facilities. However, as the doors slid open, she found herself reassessing her assumptions yet again. Dr. Olivia Green, a woman with warm brown skin and silver-streaked hair, greeted the delegation with professional composure. Unlike the Drillician medical professionals who wore elaborate insignia denoting their specialties, Dr. Green's uniform was simple, distinguished only by a small caduceus pin. "Welcome to our medical facilities," Dr. Green said. "We've prepared a brief demonstration of our capabilities, if you're interested." Veroxin nodded, her secondary antennae twitching with curiosity. Your medical technology is of particular interest to the Empire. Biological sciences often reveal much about a species' priorities. The medical bay was smaller than those on Drelician vessels, but packed with equipment. Verox Sin noticed something unusual. Many devices were modular, designed to be quickly reconfigured. "This is our primary diagnostic array," Dr. Green explained, activating a scanner that hummed to life. "It can identify over 18,000 known human conditions and has been programmed to analyze non-human biology as well. You design medical equipment for alien physiology before making contact?" Veroxin asked, mandibles clicking in surprise. Dr. Green smiled. "We hoped to meet new friends among the stars. Being able to help them if they were injured seemed like good manners." The doctor demonstrated several other systems: regenerative therapy equipment, cellular recalibration devices, and neural mapping technology. Each showed a sophisticated understanding of biology that seemed at odds with their relatively simple spacecraft design. "This equipment," Veroxin said, examining a portable medical unit, "utilizes principles similar to our Phase 7 biological restoration units. Yet your propulsion systems are barely Phase 3 equivalents. Your development path is unusual." Commander Carter, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. "We've always focused our best minds on preserving life, Captain. Space travel gets us where we need to go, but healing the sick and injured, that's always been our priority." As they moved through the bay, Veroxin observed human medical staff training with emergency scenarios. Their responses were quick, adaptive, and surprisingly effective, despite using less advanced tools than Drelicians would employ. "Your people emphasize adaptability over perfection," Veroxin noted. "This contradicts most advanced development models." Dr. Green nodded thoughtfully. "We learned long ago that perfect systems fail perfectly. We prefer imperfect systems that can be fixed with whatever's at hand." One of Veroxin's officers leaned closer. "Captain, their biological understanding exceeds our initial assessment by several development stages." Veroxin was about to respond when an alert sounded throughout the ship. Commander Carter touched his communication device. "Carter here. What's happening?" "Sir," came the urgent reply, "we're receiving a distress call from Mining Colony Delta on the nearby moon. Critical life support failure. Estimated 200 colonists affected." Carter's expression changed instantly from diplomatic host to focused commander. "Prepare emergency response teams. Alert the Drelician vessel." "We monitored the transmission," Veroxin interrupted. "The Sentinel can reach the colony in half your vessel's time." "True," Carter acknowledged, "but our teams are specifically trained for atmospheric emergencies. Perhaps a joint response." Veroxin considered this unexpected offer. In Drelician culture, emergencies were opportunities to demonstrate superiority, not collaboration. "Agreed," she said finally. "My ship will transport your emergency teams to arrive more quickly." As the humans rushed to prepare, Veroxin watched with growing fascination. These supposedly primitive beings had just voluntarily offered aid to strangers, without calculation of advantage or protocol requirements. The true test of their capabilities, she realized, was about to begin, and she was no longer certain of what to expect. The Drelician vessel Sentinel of Dawn arrived at Mining Colony Delta in exactly half the time it would have taken the human ship. Captain Veroxin stood on her command deck, watching as her crew coordinated with the human emergency teams they had transported. "Initial scans complete," Captain reported her science officer. "The colony's atmospheric regulators have failed completely. Toxic gas from the moon's core is seeping into all habitation zones. Concentration levels are already at 40% lethal dose." Veroxin's mandibles tightened in concern. "Deploy our atmospheric purification drones." "Already attempted, Captain," came the response. "The moon's unusual magnetic field is disrupting their guidance systems. They cannot maintain stable flight patterns within the colony structures." This was unexpected. Drelician technology rarely failed so completely. Varrox turned toward the human emergency team led by Lieutenant Paul Bennett, a stocky man with a calm demeanor despite the crisis. "Your assessment, Lieutenant?" she asked. Bennett studied the colony schematics. "The layout resembles our deep-sea mining operations on Earth. We can use manual equipment rather than automated systems. Our emergency breathers are designed for toxic environments and don't rely on electronic guidance." "Manual intervention is inefficient," Varrox stated. "The toxic concentration will affect your people before you can reach all colonists." Bennett smiled confidently. "That's why we brought chemical scrubbers. Old technology, but reliable in any conditions." Varrox watched as the human team prepared equipment that seemed almost primitive: physical air filters, mechanical pumps, and chemical compounds mixed by hand rather than synthesized by machines. "Your technology lacks sophistication," she observed. "But it works when the sophisticated stuff fails," Bennett replied without taking offense. "Sometimes the old ways are the most reliable." As the rescue operation began, Varrox observed from her ship's monitoring station. The human team split into small groups, each carrying equipment that would have been considered outdated by Drillician standards centuries ago. What happened next surprised her completely. While her own crew's advanced systems continued to malfunction in the colony's unusual environment, the humans' equipment worked flawlessly. They established manual air purification stations at strategic points throughout the colony, using simple chemical reactions to neutralize toxins. "Captain," reported her first officer with evident confusion, "the humans are succeeding where our technology cannot." The sensor displays confirmed it. Toxic gas levels were dropping in sections where the humans had deployed their equipment. More impressively, they were adapting their approach as they encountered new challenges, modifying their equipment on the spot without requiring new fabrication or programming. When a corridor collapsed, blocking access to 15 trapped colonists, Bennett's team quickly disassembled their equipment, crawled through maintenance ducts, and reassembled it on the other side. Such flexibility would be impossible with Drillician technology, which required precise conditions to function correctly. After 4 hours of intensive work, the colony was stabilized. All 200 colonists survived, thanks primarily to the humans' intervention. As the rescue teams returned to the ships, Varrox approached Lieutenant Bennett. "Your methods were unorthodox, but effective." Bennett wiped sweat from his forehead. "We're taught to solve problems with whatever tools are available. When advanced technology works, that's great. When it doesn't, we fall back on basics. This principle guides your ship design as well?" Varrox asked. "Absolutely," Bennett replied. "The horizon might not look impressive from the outside, but she's designed to keep us alive when everything goes wrong." Varrox watched the exhausted human team supporting each other as they boarded her shuttle. Their equipment was smudged, their uniforms stained, but they had accomplished what her advanced technology could not. "Perhaps," she thought to herself, "there is wisdom in their approach that we have forgotten in our pursuit of perfect technology." This realization was as uncomfortable as it was profound. After the successful rescue operation, the U.S. Horizon and the Sentinel of Dawn remained in orbit around Mining Colony Delta. Captain Varrox surprised her crew by requesting additional time aboard the human vessel. "I wish to understand their methods more thoroughly," she explained to her skeptical first officer. "Their approach to the crisis revealed aspects of their civilization we failed to detect initially." Commander Carter welcomed the Drillician delegation back aboard with a warmth that still felt foreign to Varrox. Humans seemed to form connections quickly, without the careful status negotiations that define Drillician interactions. "We've prepared a small gathering in our mess hall," Carter explained as they walked. "Nothing formal, just a chance for our crews to meet under better circumstances." The mess hall had been transformed. Tables were arranged in a circular pattern, with humans and a few Drillicians already engaged in conversation. The air carried unfamiliar but pleasant aromas. "We're serving some of our traditional foods," Carter said. "Our science team confirmed they're compatible with your digestive system." We thought sharing a meal might be a good way to learn about each other. Veroxin hadn't expected this. In Drelician culture, communal eating was reserved for those who had served together for years. Yet here, humans offered this intimacy to strangers. Navigation Officer Kelly Rodriguez approached with a tray of small food items. "Captain Veroxin, I've selected some dishes that might appeal to your palate. Our scan suggested you might enjoy more acidic flavors." The human was correct. The food items were surprisingly pleasant, with complex taste profiles that Drelician synthesizers rarely achieved. "You create these by hand?" Veroxin asked, sampling another morsel. "Many of them, yes," Rodriguez replied. "Cooking is both science and art for us. It connects us to our history." As the evening progressed, Veroxin found herself engaged in genuine conversation with the humans. Rodriguez shared stories of Earth's exploration history, describing how humans had ventured across oceans in wooden vessels long before they understood the physics of flotation. "You risked death to see what was beyond the horizon?" Veroxin asked, fascinated. "Curiosity is one of our strongest traits," Rodriguez explained. "Sometimes it gets us into trouble, but it's also how we've advanced." Communication Officer Diane Foster joined their conversation, asking thoughtful questions about Drelician culture. Unlike many species the Empire had encountered, Foster seemed genuinely interested in understanding, not just collecting information. "Your written language evolved from mathematical notations?" Foster asked, examining the symbols on Veroxin's uniform. "That explains the elegant precision we noticed in your transmissions." Veroxin found herself explaining concepts she had never expected to share with a less advanced species. The Empire values order and progression. Each achievement builds methodically upon the last, while we humans tend to leap in unexpected directions, Carter added with a smile. "Sometimes we advance rapidly in one field while neglecting others. Like your medical technology compared to your propulsion systems," Veroxin observed. Carter nodded. "We follow our passions and our needs. When Earth faced environmental challenges, we poured resources into medicine and agriculture. Space exploration came later, driven more by curiosity than necessity." As the evening continued, Veroxin realized the humans were teaching her something fundamental about technological development. The Drelician Empire had always assumed advancement followed a predictable linear path. Any deviation was considered inefficient or flawed. Yet humans had created a spacefaring civilization through an entirely different developmental path. They had prioritized flexibility, redundancy, and adaptability over perfection. Their ships might appear unimpressive, but they could operate in conditions that would cripple more advanced vessels. "Your perspective is illuminating," Veroxin admitted as the gathering concluded. "I would like to continue our exchange, if you are willing." Carter smiled warmly. "We'd be honored, Captain. Perhaps tomorrow you could show us some of your ship's capabilities in return." Veroxin agreed, though with a strange new feeling. She was no longer certain whose technology was truly superior. The following day, Veroxin led Commander Carter and a small human delegation through the gleaming corridors of the Sentinel of Dawn. The Drelician vessel was a marvel of biomechanical engineering, flowing lines, self-adjusting environments, and crystalline control interfaces that responded to thought patterns. "Your ship is beautiful," Carter said, genuinely impressed. "The integration of biological and mechanical systems is unlike anything we've developed." Veroxin felt a flutter of pride, though she was beginning to understand that the humans' appreciation came without the competitive assessment that Drelicians would automatically apply. "Our vessels are the culmination of 12 generations of continuous refinement," she explained. "Each system represents the optimal solution for its function." Chief Engineer Sam Martinez ran his hand near, but respectfully not touching, a pulsing conduit. "Optimal under standard conditions," he observed. "But what happens during unexpected situations?" The question wasn't challenging but curious. Veroxin hesitated before answering. Our systems are designed to function perfectly within their specified parameters, she admitted. When conditions exceed those parameters, performance degradation is significant. Like with the mining colony rescue, Carter noted. Precisely. Verux Sin led them to the ship's computational center, where crystalline matrices processed information at speeds the humans could barely comprehend. This is our primary thinking system. It can solve complex navigational equations in microseconds. Weapons Officer Greg Wilson studied the system with interest. It's incredibly fast. But can it improvise? Improvise. Verux Sin's translator struggled with the concept. Create new solutions to unexpected problems, Wilson clarified. Our computers are programmed to try approaches that might seem illogical, but sometimes work when conventional solutions fail. Sin considered this. Such randomness would be considered inefficient in our design philosophy. The tour continued to the Weapons Control Center, where Sin expected the humans to be most impressed. The Sentinel's offensive capabilities were far beyond the U.S. Horizon's modest defense systems. Our primary particle beam can neutralize targets at twice your maximum weapons range, she explained. Wilson nodded politely but seemed more interested in the defensive systems. Your shields are impressive, but they appear to require significant power concentration. Of course, maximum protection requires dedicated energy allocation. On the Horizon, we use a distributed defense approach, Wilson explained. Rather than one powerful shield, we have multiple overlapping systems. If one fails, the others compensate. Sin was beginning to see a pattern. You sacrifice peak performance for reliability. We call it not putting all our eggs in one basket, Carter said with a smile. The final stop was the Sentinel's Bridge, the command center that represented the pinnacle of Drelician design philosophy. Here, Sin expected even these curious humans to be humbled by Drelician superiority. Instead, they asked the most surprising questions. Where are the manual overrides? Martins asked, examining the seamless control interfaces. Why would advanced systems need manual overrides? Sin countered. For when the advanced systems fail, Martins replied simply. Later, in her private quarters, Sin reviewed the ship schematics of the U.S. Horizon that the humans had freely shared. What she found changed her understanding completely. The human vessel wasn't primitive. It was purposefully designed with dozens of hidden capabilities. Their seemingly basic hull contained sensor-absorbing materials that partially masked their energy signatures. Their inefficient power distribution allowed them to reroute critical systems in seconds. Even their weapons, while less powerful than Drelician equivalents, could be reconfigured for different threat profiles. Most surprisingly, she discovered that humans had specifically designed their ships with potential alien encounters in mind. They had built-in compatibility options, universal docking adapters, and communication systems capable of interfacing with unknown technologies. They hadn't just hoped to meet alien species, they had methodically prepared for it, despite having no proof such beings existed. Sin sat back, her four eyes blinking in sequence as the realization settled in. The humans weren't technologically inferior. They had simply optimized for different priorities. Adaptation over perfection, versatility over specialization, and perhaps most importantly, cooperation over domination. Her initial dismissal of human ships now seemed not just incorrect, but embarrassingly short-sighted. The command deck of the Sentinel of Dawn hummed with quiet activity as Captain Sin prepared her final report to Drelician High Command. Her officers' stations, occasionally glancing at their captain with subtle curiosity. None had expected their routine patrol to result in such an unusual diplomatic situation. Sin reviewed her carefully composed message one final time. What had begun as a standard inspection report had evolved into something unprecedented. A formal recommendation for alliance with a species the Empire would typically consider underdeveloped. Send the transmission, she ordered, her mandibles set in a position of determination. Her communications officer hesitated momentarily. Captain, This recommendation contradicts standard evaluation protocols. Are you certain? I am. Varroxin interrupted firmly. I take full responsibility for this assessment. The message departed, streaking through subspace toward the heart of the Drelician Empire. Varroxin knew her career might be at risk, but her experiences aboard the human vessel had fundamentally changed her understanding of technological advancement and species evaluation. On the view screen, the U.S. Horizon maintained position nearby. The simple exterior of the human ship no longer appeared primitive to her eyes. Now she saw the clever functionality of its design, the hidden strengths in its seemingly basic construction. Captain, her first officer reported, Commander Carter is requesting to speak with you. On screen, Varroxin replied. Frank Carter's image appeared, his expression reflecting the same thoughtful consideration she felt. Captain Varroxin, I just finished my report to Earth Command. They're quite interested in establishing formal relations with the Drelician Empire. As are we, Varroxin responded. I have recommended a full alliance rather than the standard observation protocol. Arter's eyebrows raised slightly. He understood the significance of this exception. In that spirit, I'd like to propose something more specific. An exchange program between our species. We have much to learn from each other. What form would this exchange take? Varroxin asked, though she already found herself approving of the concept. We could begin with shared missions, Carter suggested. Mixed crews, cooperative research, technological collaboration. The mining colony incident proved we can work effectively together. Varroxin considered this proposal. Such direct cooperation with a newly discovered species was unprecedented in Drelician history. Yet the humans had repeatedly demonstrated that unprecedented approaches often yielded valuable results. I support this initiative, she said finally, and I would request personal assignment as the Drelician liaison to coordinate our joint efforts. Carter smiled broadly. I was hoping you'd say that. No one else has your perspective on both our cultures now. The next several hours were devoted to establishing the framework for their cooperation. Each species would share selected technologies, beginning with emergency response systems and environmental adaptations. Cultural exchange programs would follow, with crew members rotating between vessels. As preparations concluded, Varroxin stood in the docking bay, watching the human delegation prepare to return to their ship. Commander Carter, she said formally, when I first observed your vessels, I made an error in judgment based on appearance rather than function. This was a significant mistake. Carter shook his head. It was a reasonable assessment based on your experience. We look at new things through the lens of what we already know. Perhaps the most valuable lesson of our meeting, Varroxin observed, is that advancement follows different paths for different species, and those different paths can converge in wonderful ways. Carter added, the human shuttle departed. Varroxin returned to her bridge. In the distance, she could see Earth's long-range vessels already approaching. The first wave of humans, eager to meet their new allies. From her command chair, she watched as her communications officer received an incoming transmission from Drelician High Command. To her surprise, it contained immediate approval of her alliance recommendation, along with instructions to proceed with the exchange program. It seems, she said to her crew, that our future lies in unexpected directions. The Sentinel of Dawn and the U.S. Horizon moved into formation, their silhouettes forming a striking contrast against the stars, different in almost every way, yet now united in purpose. Together, they set course for the beginning of an alliance that would reshape both their civilizations. Back on Earth, the news of successful first contact with the Drelician Empire sparked celebration. Humanity had taken its first steps into a wider galactic community, not through conquest or intimidation, but through the quiet strength of adaptability, ingenuity, and cooperation.